So we've been talking about skeletal system, looking at different features of skeletal system. So what are the two main divisions of skeletal system? The two main divisions. Axial and appendicular skeleton. The axial and appendicular skeleton. Okay. Which makes up the main skeletal system. So the facial bones, how many facial bones do we have?
20.
Facial bones. I'm sorry, the cranial bones. The cranial bones. 8 cranial bones. So let's name them.
Frontal,
1 frontal,
2 temporal,
2 temporal, 2 parietal, occipital, 1 occipital,
Sphenoid,
sphenoid, and
ethmoid.
ethmoid. Okay, sphenoid and ethmoid. Okay. So how many cranial fossae do we have? Cranial fossa or fossa? The cranial fossa are 3, which are
anterior,
anterior, middle, and
posterior.
so what occupies the anterior fossa? The frontal lobe of the brain. Remember, we got to complete it. The frontal lobe of the brain. Okay. So what about the middle, the temporal lobe, and the posterior?
What do you pronounce
Occipital. Occipital, yes. Occipital occupies the posterior lobe. I mean the posterior fossa. Posterior fossa. All right. What about the sutures? What are the types of sutures that we have? 4.
Lambdoid,
Lambdoid and sphenoid. Sphenoid. The sphenoid suture. What's the sphenoid suture? Where do we have it? The sphenoid suture. Where do we have it?
Is it, what
The
is
squamous and no, not the squamous. Sorry.
it? Is that squamous?
squamous.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, the squamous suture. The squamous.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah,
hold on. We got the squamous suture,
Uh-huh.
the lambdoid, the coroner,
And
and the
posterior.
sagittal.
Okay.
Okay. So this the squamous suture. Where do we have it?
Lateral.
Yeah, it's lateral border. But what's border of what?
Oh.
The temporal and the parietal and the parietal. Okay. What about the lambdoid? Yeah, we said it. The occipital and the parietal forms the lambdoid. Okay. What about the corona or frontal suture? Okay, the frontal and the parietal. The frontal and the parietal. All right. You gotta hold on right now. Let's everyone try. Okay. What about the last one, which is the sagittal? The sagittal. What forms the sagittal? The left and right parietal. The left and right parietal. Okay. Very important. The left and right parietal. All right. We've talked about the concave, which we said helps to form the turbulence if the air is coming in. So kind of helps to humidify it, which is in the nasal cavity. All right, the vomer is another bone. The vomer is another bone. So when we take a look at it here, that's another bone. All right. So the vomer, it forms what we call the inferior half of the nasal septum because the whole of the nasal septum is this way. Okay, so the inferior half of it is formed by the vomer. Okay, it's formed by the vomer. So what it also does is it supports the cartilage that forms part of the anterior part of the nasal septum. The cartilage. Remember that we got the cartilage in the front of our nose, which eventually helps to form the nasal septum. Remember we said the nasal septum divides the nasal cavity into the left and the right. Okay, so the lesser septum can have a deformity in which either it will bend laterally. When it bends laterally, it kind of occludes the inlets so that it kind of reduce the entrance of the ear. Okay, very important. All right, the mandible. We said the mandible is the only bone that is movable, okay, noticeable, movable, okay, of the skull. What it does is, it supports the lower teeth. So when we look at the mandible, you're going to see that it's got the upper hand, this way, which we call the ramus, Okay, we call it the ramus. So this upper hand is called ramus. Okay, and the top part here is the condyle. What's thing about the condyle? The condyle, we said condyle helps in what? Articulate, helps to form articulation, worth another bone. Because if you take a look at it, you're going to see that it actually articulates right here and right there. Okay? All right. So then we have the body. The body is the horizontal parts. This is the horizontal part, which is right here, the body. And the angle, which eventually continues to form the ramus. So that's the angle. And the front part is what we call the mental protuberance, which helps to form the chin. Okay? Mental protuberance. Okay, we have some holes in there which allows blood vessels and some other things. We call that mental foramen. So you can see right around the edges, we have what we call the alveolar process, which allows the tooth to kind of come out. So these are the teeth, right? So you can see the foramen. All of those helps with allowing blood vessels to come in and all that. Okay, for nerves and all that. All right. So, all right, I think we're good with that. So the major parts, the body, ramus, angle, okay, the features of the ramus, which we already talked about. Now, remember that the condyle here with the temporal area, okay, forms what we call, what is the name? The name of this area which joins with the temporal, which allows for movements. Temporal mandibular joint, or temporal mandibular joint, okay? All right, which helps to form the TMJ. So the condylar process with the mandibular condyle articulates with the temporal bone to form the TMJ. All right, the TMJ can get locked, can get dislocated, you know, just like every other joint, can get infected. All right. All right. So the other bones that is kind of associated with the skull, the auditory ossicles. We talked about that, right? Which we have in the middle inner ear. We have the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. Now, the hyoid bone is a type of U-shaped bone. It's a type of U-shaped bone. Okay. I think I wish you. All right, got it. This is the hyoid bone. Okay. You can see this. There is actually the U-shaped bone, which is hanging on the anterior part of the neck. Right? Which is hanging on the anterior part of the neck. That's the hyoid bone. Alright? The thing about it is, it doesn't form articulation with any other bone, so it's kind of suspended right at the part of the anterior part of the neck, which is this. Okay? Right, by what we call the styloid process. You need to remember the styloid process right here. The styloid process. Okay? All right. Now, when somebody claims that somebody strangled me, okay? All right, this is a kind of forensic evidence. Can give a clue that a clue that that person has been strangled. All right? So either see some bruises in there or it gets fractured. Right, it gets fractured. So it's a fractured bone that shows evidence of what? Strangulation. And when they take an X-ray, you can see that, oh, it's kind of fractured. Yeah, that person did it. Okay?
Doctor, the same thing with the ring there, when you get hung, it breaks it.
It's almost the same thing, yeah. Because remember that when people try to kill themselves, hang themselves,
That
You know?
works.
All right. The skull in the infancy and the childhood, we've talked about the frontanels. Okay, we've talked about the purpose, which means it allows the shifting of the bone, particularly during the birth. Also allows for what? Growth of the bone. Okay, growth of the bone. So as we said, we have the anterior, posterior, sphenoid, and the mastoid fontanelles. Anterior, posterior, the sphenoid is the anterolateral. So which means, let's take it. We have the anterior, okay, the posterior fontanelles. Then we have the sphenoid fontanelles, and we have the mastoid fontanelles. Okay, the sphenoid fontanelles is the junction between the frontal bone, the parietal, and the sphenoid, the spots here. All right. While the mastoid is the junction between the temporal, or the mastoid area of the temporal, then the occipital and the parietal frontanelles. So it allows for growth expansion of the brain. So very important. Okay? All right. So by age 6, the two frontal bones, because the frontal bones is actually like a tube, but eventually it fuses by age 6. All right? So by 8 or 9 years of age, the skull has approached what we call the adult size, the adult size. Okay. All right. The vertebral column. I know we talked a little bit about that. So the spine, the functions of the spine helps to support the skull. The trunk also allows for what we call the movements. Okay. Inside it is what we call the vertebral foramen or vertebral canal. Vertebral foramen or vertebral canal. Vertebral foramen or canal. Okay, this is where spinal cord is. It houses spinal cord. The vertebral foramen or the canal houses spinal cord. Remember we said the spinal cord is an extension of the brain, downward extension of the brain. Right after the brainstem, then it becomes the spinal cord. So we said this, the nervous system is divided into how many parts? The nervous system.
12.
Nervous system. Nervous system.
2.
2.
Yes.
Which we have?
The central one.
The central nervous system
And the peripheral. And the
and the peripheral. All right. The autonomic is part of the peripheral. Remember. So we said the central nervous system is now divided into what?
2.
Into 2, which is
Central nerve and the peripheral.
Brain and the spinal cord.
Oh, brain and spinal cord, yeah.
all right.
The
You gotta-
brain and the spinal cord. The central.
Okay, hang on. The nervous system is divided into 2. The central nervous system and the peripheral, right?
Yes. The central nerve is the brain and the spinal cord.
Okay, the brain and
The spinal cord.
the spinal cord.
And the-
Spinal cord. Okay, while peripheral is everything else. So you're talking about peripheral nerves,
Cranial nerves.
Cranial nerves.
Cranial autonomic.
autonomic nervous system,
And spinal nerves.
spinal nerves, so
Etc.
etc. Yeah. All right. Every other thing. So just understand that the nervous system, central nervous system, peripheral, the central nervous system into the brain and the spinal cord. So everything else. You're talking about the cranial nerves, the autonomic nervous system, the peripheral nerves, and so on. Okay. So how many cranial nerves do we have?
12.
12. Okay. All right. That's fine. So how would you define the cranial nerves? How would you define a cranial nerves?
You were just starting to write down all the 12
No.
cranial nerves.
Definition now.
Yeah, I know. We didn't get to write all of them down.
No, we haven't. Because we're getting little by little. I know we got like 5. I know.
So you need the definition.
The definition of cranial nerves.
Optical, or optic is.
The
part of
definition, the definition. How would you define the cranial nerves?
Originates from the cranial cavity.
Okay.
Passes through the foramen.
Slits, Meatus,
the
supplies, the structures
of the head and neck.
of the head and neck. Okay, there is one that goes further, all the way to the abdomen. What cranial nerve is that?
Davis.
Vagus and cranial nerve. Huh?
Last time.
Yeah, I know it's vagus, but what cranial nerve number?
Oh,
10. Cranial nerve number 10. Good. All right. Okay. Don't worry. We're gonna fill it up. We're gonna fill it up. I know we filled 1, 2, 8, 10,
And 12.
and 12. Okay. We're gonna fill the rest up.
1, 2.
8 and 12. Okay. All right. So the spine, it allows for the extension of the brain, which is the spinal cord. All right. So it helps to absorb the stress and movement because of this fibrocartilage, which is the disc. Remember we said this disc can slip, which can pinch on the nerves, can cause loss of sensation, or what we call the sciatica. Yeah, right? Can cause that. All right. So we got. Then it also provides what we call the attachment for limbs, thoracic cage, and postural muscles. The limbs, thoracic cage, and the postural muscles. Okay, the spine does it. Now we have 33 of it. Okay, 33 of it. We've talked about the different sections. Okay, breakfast at 7, lunch at
12.
dinner at
5.
another snacks at
5.
happy hour at
4.
4 o'clock. We all know that could vary anyway. All right. Okay, so that's 33. So which means we have cervical, we have thoracic, we have lumbar, we have sacrum, we have coccyx. So the coccyx, they are four fused. Okay? Because they are fused, what we call the tailbone, they are fused. Okay? All right. Number 1, number 2, remember we have 33. Number 1 and number 2 of the cervical, it has a special name, and the reason is it allows for the head movements. So we often designate them as C for cervical, okay, T for thorax, L for lumbar, okay, S for sacrum, CO for coccyx. CO. Huh? Did somebody raise up hand? Oh, okay. All right. So C, T, L, S, CO. Okay, this is cervical, thorax, lumbar, sacrum, and coccyx. All right. So we have. So when we say cervical number 1, we can say C1. Does that make sense? C1, right? C2, cervical number 2. So C2, up till C7, right? Because we said breakfast at what? 7 o'clock, right? Good. All right. So we can have T1 to T12. Thoracic 1, thoracic 2, up to 12. Because we have 12 of them. Okay? So very important. Same thing with lumbar, with sacrum and coccyx. But the coccyx, they are fused. Okay? 4 fused coccyx. All right. C1 is called atlas. C2 is called axis. So there is a joint between the axis, atlas, and the axis. We call it atlantoaxial joints. Atlantoaxial joint. So it allows the head to move on the axis. Atlantoaxial joints. Okay? You remember we can do a whole lot of leg movements. So that's what gives the flexibility there. So they are not as fused as the rest. Okay? As the rest. So very important. So atlantoaxial joints, which allows for nodding of the egg, neck rotation, lateral, all different types of movements around the neck. All right? around the neck. Okay? All right. So the curvature of the spine, when a baby is born, we call it, we say it is a C-shaped. C-shaped. But in an adult, or by the age or beyond the age of 3 years, the shape forms what? S. S-shape. And we're talking about some of the deformities that can happen with the shape. Okay? With the shape. So what are the different deformities, spine deformities that we can see in a patient? Huh? Scoliosis.
The one with the hunchback and the
All right, okay, hold on. We got scoliosis, number 1.
In the K, the kyphosis.
Kyphosis, number 2.
L.
Lordosis. And the 4th one. All right, we have lordosis, kyphosis, kyphoscoliosis. Thank you. Good lady, thank you. Everybody is good. Please don't get me wrong. It's just like when I'm excited that way, so kind of bust out that way. Everybody is good. You guys are just good, man. So lordosis, kyphosis, scoliosis, and kyphoscoliosis. Kyphoscoliosis. Okay? Kyphoscoliosis. So how would you describe lordosis? Lordosis. Outward protrusion of the lumbar. Okay? Multiple gestation, obesity can cause that. Also deformity on arm, any of deformity of the cartilage or the joints between each of the vertebral body. Vertebral body can also cause it. Okay? So how will you define kyphosis? Hunchback, but okay, I know it's hunchback. You just tell me another name, but how would you actually describe it?
Exaggerated thoracic.
Exactly, exaggerated thoracic curvature. Thoracic curvature, okay, which now causes what we call the hunchback. All right, scoliosis. Huh? Yeah, that's the number shape is S. It's S.
Curvature.
Okay, what is it? The lateral curvature. The lateral curvature. Okay, so we have kyphoscoliosis, which involves what? It's not just hunchback. Kyphoscoliosis.
Isn't it
It's
where it's
with
hot
both
like this?
and sway over, like
Scoliosis
Okay.
in
it's both together.
Scoliosis and what?
In the kypho with
And
the
the
hunch.
kyphosis. Exactly. Which means exaggerated curvature and the lateral bending of the spine. All right. What could be a problem with a patient? What can be a problem with a patient that has kyphosis, scoliosis, and kyphoscoliosis in particular?
Pain, a lot of pain.
Okay, pain. All right. What else? Huh?
They can't walk.
They might not be able to walk very well because they probably have to because of the weight. Okay. All right. What else?
May have a lot of nerve damage.
They could have a nerve compression. Okay. What else? What other compression can they have?
Disc compression. Compression.
Organs.
Oh,
Particularly the
yeah,
thoracic
because they're
organ.
not laying.
Exactly, the thoracic organs, particularly the thoracic organ. Okay? All right. So we're moving on. So those are the curvature and all that. Kyphosis, lordosis. All right. The general structure of the vertebrae. All right. So we have, this are the vertebral bone. Remember we have 33 of these, right? 33 of these. Okay? So we have the body, the foramina, which is the canal, the arch, and the spinous process. So this is the body, where we have, that sits on top of it, the fibrocartilage, which helps another one to sit on top, or it sits on another one. Okay? You guys understand what I'm saying, right? Because this is, all right, these are individual vertebrae, okay, the vertebral body, okay? So you can see the fibrocartilage, is in between this vertebrae, this vertebrae. So when I say on top, we have the fibrocartilage, which allows another one to sit on it. Sit on the disc, what we call the disc. Okay? So we have the body, all right? So the one that kind of like punches out, that's what we call the spinous process. This is the spinous process, okay? The transverse process is the one that shoots out on the side, okay? So that's the spinous process, okay? So we have what we call the articular facet, which allow another type of allow the spinous process to make a joint worth the lower one. Okay, this is the spinous process. So it has its articular cartilage, which joins with the articular facet of the lower one. So that's how they're able to eventually sit on top of each other, Okay, all right. So again, we have 33 of them. All right. So I've told you that the vertebral canal allow what to pass through or houses what?
Nerve.
What type of nerve? What is the name?
The
The spinal cord.
Okay.
This spinal cord. This spinal cord. Good. The spinal cord. All right. So very important. So that's the thing about it. All right. The transverse process facets. Good. So this is it. That's like L1, L2, and so on. Okay. All right. The intervertebral foramen. Now, the intervertebral foramen, intervertebral foramen. We're not talking about the vertebral canal right now. The intervertebral foramen, which means we have vertebrae, this foramen here. Okay, it allows for what? For the passage of spinal nerves, the exiting of spinal nerves. Because the spinal cord is running all through this, down, through the vertebral canal, like this rod. You see this rod? This rod right here passes through the vertebral canal. Okay? So which is an extension of the brain. Alright? But on the side, we have the vertebral foramen, this hole right here, which allow for the exiting, because as the spinal cord is passing down, it continues to give us branches, what we call the spinal nerves. It branches out. Okay, it branches out. Okay, so it's for the passage of the spinal nerves. Because when the spinal nerves are coming out, they are going to innervate the muscle. Because before a muscle can be contracted, they have to have their stimulation from the nerves. Everybody understands that, right? That's why when a patient has stroke, a patient with stroke cannot be able to move the muscle. Why? Because nothing is stimulating the muscle. Okay, very important. So some of the nerves that goes into the body muscles, they are coming out from the spinal cord. Okay. Later on, we're going to see also that not just the spinal nerves coming out, we also have some contributions which are also coming out too, which forms what we call the autonomic nervous system. Okay? All right, let me just chip in a little bit. All right, the autonomic nervous system is divided into two. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Remember when we said auto, which means what? Something is driving itself without us being conscious of it. Okay? For instance, the heart is beating right now. We are breathing. We are doing so many things internally. The bagels, so many things that we ate this morning. There are a lot of processes that are going, and that food is going through. It's digestion and all that. So this is made possible by the autonomic functions in our body. Okay? Everybody understands that? All right. So the parasympathetic deals with slowing things down. Slowing things down. All right. I'm just chipping in a little bit so that you guys have an idea what it is. We're still going to talk more. Why this one increases activity. Activities. Okay? It increases activities. Alright? So let's just hold it that way. At least little by little, we're introducing it. Alright. So we'll talk about this. Alright, the intervertebral disc, which is the pad. Okay, we already said it forms the fibrocartilage. What does it do? It helps to bind the vertebrate body together, right? Because we got one rib, we got one leg, binds them together. Support the weights, helps in absorbing shock. When it's herniated, slip, we call it what? Herniated disc or slip disc, which can be very painful and pinch on the nerve or the spinal cord. So you can see, this is the vibrocartilage. All right? This is the spinal cord. You can see that the spinal nerve is exiting through the intervertebral foramen. Intervertebral foramen. Remember, we're not saying vertebral canal or vertebral foramen. Okay, what houses the spinal cord? What houses the spinal cord? What houses the spinal cord? The vertebral foramen or vertebral column. And what's aperture or what's hole did spinal cord passes down through? Yes, what hole did?
I get this confused.
Huh?
Is that the one, the foramen magnum?
The foramen magnum. Okay, because you reminded me, so I put it in question. All right, foramen magnum. So, which is the largest hole in the skull, which gives for the passing down of the spinal cord. Okay, all right, good. All right. So the C1, C2, we already talked about it. Okay, C1 is the atlas, C2 is the axis. All right. So very important. So the axis, atlas, because it's on top, it supports the head. All right. Which eventually articulate with C2, which helps with a whole lot of movements. He's saying yes, all different type of movements. Okay, we said it forms on the posterior part. It forms a joint with the occipital, which what we call atlanto-occipital joint, which allows us to notch. Okay, all right. But the joint between the atlas and the axis is what? What do we call it? The joint between the atlanto-axial joints. Okay? All right, good. Good. All right. So the C2 allows for rotation, atlanto-axial joints and all that. Okay? You can see the different types of movements that is going on. You know, rolling up the head and all that. Okay? All right, the thoracic. We got 12 of those. So that's just the main thing about it. We got 12 of it. So each of the vertebrate body has the same features. We have the body, the spinous process, the transverse process, okay, the canal, because they sit on top of each other, which allows for the spinal cord to go down. Okay? All right, the 5 lumbar. L1 to L5. So, same. All right, the sacrum. The sacrum is like a plate. We call it a bony plate. Now, the sacrum forms the posterior wall of the pelvic cavity. All right, when we talk about the pelvic, which we're going to talk about the pelvic bones, we have the 2 hip bones, okay, which join together as the pubic symphysis. All right. This is the inlet, the pelvic cavity. The posterior parts, the plates, this is the sacrum, and this is the tailbone, the 4 fused one. All right? So what forms? This is the cavity right here, which allows for the head of the baby to go in during what? Childbirth. All right. So, what forms the posterior wall? These plates. That is what the sacrum. The sacrum. All right. Forms the sacrum, which is very important. All right. Initially, there are five separate sacral bones. All right. But around age 16 and 26, there is what? A complete fusion. They fuse together. Complete fusion. Okay? They fuse together. A complete fusion. All right? So it has the foramen, which allows for what? Exiting of nerves. Exiting of nerves. All right? All right. The posterior surface, which is on the back. The back. The back of it, right here. Okay? It is very rough. I mean, we all can see it. Very rough. Very rough. All right? So, I think that's just the main thing about that. Very rough and all that. All right, there is what we call sacral canal. Okay, the sacral canal kind of runs vertically through the sacral canal, which is same thing as the vertebra, is the continuation of the vertebral column downwards. Okay? All right, so it contains what we call the spinal roots, which means the taper end of the spinal nerves. Okay? So that's just main thing. All right, the coccyx is just four fused. Okay? Or sometimes it could be 5, but eventually it fused to what? A single one. A triangular bone by age 20 to 30. Age 20 to 30. All right? It can be fractured sometimes during childbirth, particularly if there is obstructed labor. Obstructed labor. Obstructed labor is when the baby, for some reason, even not even for some reason, even let's say the woman hasn't been going for prenatal, because as soon as the woman is going for prenatal care and all that, we check everything that everything is fine. We measure the head circumference of the baby, head circumference in relation to the pelvic brim. The pelvic brim. Okay, that's the inlet which is going to allow the head of the baby to sink in, what we call the engagements. Okay, so when a woman is pregnant, getting to around, say like close to term, we say the baby is dropping. When we say the baby is dropping, it's actually the baby's head is getting in to go out. Okay, so when the head circumference, for some reason, it is bigger or slightly bigger than the inlets, and during the contraction, the baby is just trying to push himself, to push himself, to push himself. There might be a deformity there, okay, in which the tailbone can get fractured, all right? Difficulty childbirth, or sometimes by heart fall, when the woman just fall apart, okay? But in OB, that is the one that usually happens during obstructed labor. The uterus is contracting, trying to push the baby, and also when we are trying to actually trying to get the baby out, either through using the forceps and all that, in putting the forceps in, things can get damaged there. Okay, apart from the fact that sometimes, because of the head of the baby that is pressing hard here, if there is a full bladder, remember the bladder is in front, if there is a full bladder, the head of the baby is going to be pressing on the bladder, and because of that, it can cause ischemia, all right? After ischemia, which eventually can become necrotic, which means that part of the bladder can die. As a result, the woman, after having finished having birth, 2 or 3 days later, instead of urine to be coming out through the urethra, okay, it's coming out through the vagina. What we call the vesicle or urethro-vaginal fistula. There is a hole, okay, because of the obstructed labor, okay, that can happen. But again, it doesn't happen in America.
It don't happen in America?
It doesn't happen, because if it happens, you know who's going to be on the OB's back? Morgan and Morgan. All the people. Well, don't let me say it doesn't. Let me just put it this way.
Very rare.
Very highly rare. But in developing countries, yes, it does, because a woman wouldn't go for prenatal care, no checkups, nothing. Yeah, then all of bam, it just come in with labor.
Okay.
Or maybe she's pregnant, she doesn't want the mom, she doesn't want everybody to know. So that's in cases that it can happen here.
Okay.
So a lady is pregnant, she doesn't want the mom to know, and she kept wearing big stuff and all that.
Don't get treatment.
Yes,
That's when it.
right. Then eventually the labor sets in and the baby is already down. So she hasn't been going for prenatal. But if a woman has been going for prenatal, we measure the head of the baby to be sure that the pelvic is okay. And the height also. The height of the baby, the shorter the woman, we don't even let her go through a labor. We go cesarean section. Because a shorter woman has a small pelvic. All right? Every woman has a larger pelvic, much more larger than a man, because it allows room for childbirth and for carrying of the baby. Yeah.
What do you do if, I know it's rare, but what would you do if that situation where the...
If that situation happens, we're going to repair the bladder.
You know what?
We repair
fix
the bladder. Yes, repair the bladder. We divert the urine. It's just like when a man has problem with the color, they give the woman what's a colostomy. Colostomy bag.
Until
So
it
divert
repairs,
exactly
right.
until the repair is okay.
You couldn't drain it before the child comes out? By doing it?
Remember, I said this woman hasn't been coming for prenatal care.
I know that, I was just saying if it happened before, you couldn't put a catheter to drain it?
Usually, if a woman is going to go through CS, we put a catheter. Kind of, because we don't want anything to rise up. We want a clear view of that area. Apart from the bladder retractor that we use in cesarean section, okay, we drain everything out. Even when a woman is in labor, sometimes when we see that the bladder is full, we drain also. Okay? So, but if this woman has been coming for her prenatal care, it's going to be caused. If not, it's not going to be caused. It's not going to be caused. Okay? All right? So very important. It's all right. Sorry, I wanted to tell you. I know you've been there. I wanted to tell you. Okay? This is going to be caused. All right? So very important.
Time for break.
All right. Yeah, time for break. You got it. Time for break. Time for break.
You called again.